if you could tell me where the module, what's it called, so I can find it on TTS.
The module is called K23 test module or something. It is in official modules on the Discord. So you should just find it there under official modules. If not, I'll send you a direct link.
Okay.
And hello on the YouTube. I just started the live stream. And so that people know what we're doing here, we're running a test of the Kriegsspiel 2023 rule set. This is an American Civil War rule set. It features a number of enhancements and improvements over the K22 rule set. And I'm not going to rule out that I might go back to the K22 rule set and create a revised edition based on all of the experiences I've had over the past year and a half. In any case, this is the K23 rule set. It's American Civil War. I ran a test game last Saturday, which you can view on the YouTube. The test game revealed some improvements that could be made to the system. I have since made virtually all of the improvements that were recommended, although not all of them. There was one or two things I kind of moderated or left alone because I think those are better. But the vast majority of the improvements were spot on, I feel, and at least worth trying. So there are going to be some differences. Okay, everyone's promoted. All right, we're going to play on one map here. This is our Gettysburg map. I'm using this because this is the map I'm using on Saturday when I run an in-person game using this system. I have two players here. I have Paul and I have Pneumaticus. And these two gentlemen are going to spar. I guess you guys can pick if you want Union or Confederate, blue or gray. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to give both players 50 points. And if you then use here the building units sheet, I need to update this sheet, but sharpshooters would be 12, and you can only get one block if you want them. I am not sure that we should mess with them, but you can. They are a little nerfed because I don't want people running around with sharpshooters. I want them to be expensive, and I just people expect way more of the unit than historically they were capable of doing. That being the case, the infantry levels are not militia, regular, elite. They are green, regular, and veteran now. Like I said, I need to update that sheet. The artillery stuff all stays the same. And if you want to grab some cavalry, some regular cavalry, that's encouraged and allowed as well. In fact, let's give you 60 points apiece so that you can afford some artillery, but I would suggest whatever mix of regular infantry you want to do. Go ahead and just set those pieces aside somewhere on, off to the side or the corner from each other, and then we will go from there. Each block that you see here, blue or gray block, they have unit designations. Each block is called a battalion. It's technically 2 companies and represents approximately 200 effectives, give or take, whatever. We're not going to worry about the minutia. In your brigade, you will form these into brigades, and the brigades can have 1 battalion, 2 battalions, 3 battalions, 4 battalions, or a maximum of 5 battalions. So you'll take the block. So let's say I'm going to take and I'm going to have the 20th Ohio as my brigade. I will duplicate this block 2 or 3 times to have the brigade of the size that I want. And of course, that all comes out of my points. So if this is a regular quality brigade that I'm forming, and with 4 regular battalions, let's take a look at the price. It's 4 points per battalion block. So the total is 16 points out of my 60 to build this unit right here, okay? And that's what that costs.
All right.
So just let me know. You can create whatever you want. And the artillery, the R is rifled, H is howitzers. Smoothbore does not have a Smoothbore artillery does not have anything on the dot, and then of course the cavalry is just regular cavalry. We're not going to get into the odd types of cavalry here today. So that's what we got. So go ahead and purchase your stuff, and then pick a commander avatar for yourself if you like, out of the blue or the gray, whatever one you want. And then when you're ready, just let me know, and I'll come up with a quick little scenario for you, and we'll go.
All right, just to start at the very beginning, how do I change color on this?
I think I can actually assign you a color. Change color. We got green and blue. Do you care? Which one do you prefer?
It's fine. Yeah, just as long as it lets me in. No
blue.
problem.
Okay, you're good. Give you blue. I'm gonna make Achilles black there. Unless you really wanted to play Achilles, but if you want to just.
No, I'm fine. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll just put together some union if that's okay.
All right. And Damon was just saying he wants to be Union too. I don't care. Right. We'll play Union versus Union.
I'm agreeable. I'll be Confederate. No problem. It's all.
All right, no problem. It's all good to me because it's just blocks.
Yeah, right.
So.
Okay.
Yeah, in a moment I will give you your Confederate loyalty oath.
Yeah. I'm going to grease up and slide back in Union after the game anyway.
We were all blocks of the same color at one time, but then one set of blocks decided they wanted to separate from the other set of blocks, and here we are.
Here we are, man. Here we are.
You might have mentioned in that excellent overview. How do we make one unit veteran versus regular? So when I choose units, I'm just pulling infantry out.
Yeah, you'll spend more points, and you'll tell me, and what'll happen is I'll label them as I'll label them. Okay. Yeah, let me fix my thing. You know, when I do this display capture, I think actually I'm doing it wrong. I'm doing something wrong on my display capture here. I just tweaked it, and now I can't go back. Primary monitor. What's this looking like on YouTube? Does it look horrible on YouTube? Did I mess it up on YouTube?
Well, your face is no longer there, but the main screen is fine.
Okay, and then if I move, yeah, you know what? It's like hyper zoomed in, so that is not what I want. Display capture 2, display capture 1. Okay, I think that's what I want, right? But is this... Okay, so I should see the corner of the green table down there in the corner, and I'm not getting that. Man, okay, so why do I have 2 display captures? There we go. You know, I think I need to delete that. You sure you want to delete it? Yeah, I want to delete it. And then here, I turn my face off. No. Video capture device. That's what I wanted to do. All right, we're good. All right, YouTube's fixed. And I won't have this problem again. I had this problem on Saturday, and I didn't know why. But I was really too busy to mess with it. Okay, so Damon's got some stuff picked out, it looks like. And
question here. So
yeah, that would be separate. Yeah.
Right. So it has to be 2, 4, or 6. Like it couldn't be 3 or 5.
Yes, it can be.
Okay, because your text says 2, 4, 6, or 8.
Yeah, and then the scale on these blocks, I have to scale these down. Because ideally when you have 5 blocks, they should go across 1 grid square. So that's another problem here. I have the union blocks are unscaled. I have to fix that.
You know, interestingly enough, I had I don't remember where. I have this written down on a little cheat sheet because I'm doing my own
Uh-huh.
piece and rules and stuff I'm working on.
Uh-huh.
Just speaking for Gettysburg, obviously that doesn't apply to the whole war, but just as a kind of a reference. The average regiment at Gettysburg is 350 men,
Mm-hmm.
which I think works out to a frontage of 100 yards.
Wow.
So the average brigade was 400 yards, which is 480 paces.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, the way you had them scaled could be arguably fine the way they were.
Mm-hmm. If one block is a whole brigade.
No, if each block is a regiment.
A regiment. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Yeah.
Which I'll give the feedback at the end, but I would strongly urge dropping any reference to battalions because that's definitely not a Civil War reference.
Right. Well, the reason I'm doing that is because each block is really 200 men, and a company is technically like 100, although it could be much less.
Yeah, well, like on paper, yeah, a Civil War regiment is 1,000 men, but that was just
Right.
not the reality. But it's just like, regardless, like nobody in any of the literature or anything refers to battalions in the Civil War ever.
Yeah.
So it's like only regiment, brigade, division. No one, it's like just using the word battalion is like not a normal.
Well, then the alternative would be to call these a company block, but then I'm going to get that guy who's like, well, company's not 200 men. You know what I'm saying? So I gotta pick my poison. Go ahead.
Demi brigade was a term that was used, if I remember. Not for that, but just for...
Yeah, but if I start saying demi brigade, then people get confused over, well, what's a brigade then? And
I mean, I would say that. I mean, I just think that like if you're building brigades are made of regiments.
right.
So like that's the only unit block that makes sense to me is a regiment.
Yeah.
So like I mean, here's the thing: you can just arbitrarily say that the men are 350 men instead of 200 men. Like, why do they have to be 200 men? You know, if your block is a regiment, then that regiment can represent however many men you say it.
Well, the reason is it's kind of like going back to the old brigade system that we did with Alex, where each block is relatively uniform, and then as a unit takes losses, you remove a block to indicate the loss.
Right.
And then the frontage shrinks.
And that becomes much more difficult if they're regiments, because then you have two regiments being a brigade, and if you lose a block, you lose half the brigade. You know,
Yeah,
whereas
yeah.
you can take out a smaller piece by taking out quote unquote battalion. You know.
Yeah. I may leave it
guess you
as
could-
I may leave it as battalion and then just include that in the preface, or I could say demi brigade if I wanted, and put that into the preface and just tell that guy, here's why we're using this nomenclature. You know,
You could also just use half a regiment, in theory.
yeah, like I say, half battalion in K23. So, well, anyway.
You can also say it's a group of companies. So.
Yeah, but a group of companies is technically a battalion, right? Or am I wrong?
Yeah, in the Civil
Necessarily,
War,
a group of companies
yeah.
is just a group of companies. A battalion would be, well, it depends specifically who you're dealing with and their organizational terms. But at least for European armies, the battalion is a tactical maneuver unit. The regiment is an administrative unit.
Yeah, but this is American Civil War, and that's not the case. In the American
Yeah,
Civil War,
in American Civil War,
it's-
the battalions
yeah,
and
it's-
regiments, they're kind of the same thing because the
they're
U.S.
not.
Okay, well let's get going. We can
Yeah.
argue semantics later. Okay, so Paul here, is this what you intend?
Yeah. Well, no. All that's over on the left was infantry. So, in other words, there's no cavalry or artillery over there, right? So I just.
Oh, they're up at the top.
They're at the top. You have. I'm looking here. I'm looking. I see Damon's units.
Oh, I'm tagging it over here by your.
Oh, yeah. So Paul can find the. Yeah, let me.
Okay.
You see him, Paul?
Yep.
Okay.
So I need two cavalry and an artillery, basically.
Okay,
Is
no
there
problem.
a table I can join to observe?
Yeah. Passwords lowercase IKS. Kriegsspiel.
Okay, what's that?
There we go.
Okay, let's see here.
What's the name?
IKS Kriegsspiel. Okay, so Paul, down here. Let's see here. Down here, where you have your infantry blocks, right here. I just need to know what brigades you want.
The first line of 4 are regulars.
One regiment. Okay. All right, then if that's the case, okay, let me.
And the second line are veteran.
Right. Okay. All right. Okay, and that's the 2 blocks, right?
And then correct. And these 2 go away.
Okay, and then that is veteran.
This is cavalry. So there's 4 regular, 2 veteran, 2 cavalry, and 1 artillery.
Okay, and so you have a regiment of 4 battalions, to use my nomenclature with all the caveats that go with it, and they are regular quality. Then you have a second regiment of 2 battalions. They are veteran quality. And then you have a third regiment of 2 battalions, and they are also veteran quality. Is that correct?
No, there's 2 units of cavalry. And so this should be duplicated.
Okay, so what I have here in the circle is not correct?
You just have an extra 2 is all.
Oh,
The
okay.
first 2 lines are correct.
Okay, so that just needs to be eliminated. And then you had 2 cavalry?
Yep.
And 1 artillery, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, got it. All right, there we go. All
There
right.
you go.
All right, there we have it. Okay, let me erase the drawn lines. Okay, and then Damon, let's take a look at your stuff. 14th Iowa, what are they?
They're regulars.
Okay, and it's 5. Oh, you already labeled it. Perfect. Okay. All right, and then this Ohio or 15th U.S. goes away. Is that correct, or are they in?
No, those are going.
Okay. All right, so this is what you've got. 2 brigades here. The sharpshooters are smooth bores. Okay, perfect. All right. Now pick yourselves a commander avatar, and then I just had to work up a quick scenario for you. And let's see, everyone here, I'm going to promote you, Sean, so you can interact if you wish. And then let's kick the 2 players into another room briefly and decide on a quick little scenario. Just a brief little scenario. So I'm going to move Damon and Paul into the extra game room real quick.
All right.
All right.
Okay, guys, let's just come up with a quick scenario. I don't want to worry about too much about scouting, but I do want to have them march up just a little bit, I think. We can really...
The British are coming.
Yeah, we can pick any section of the battlefield, and then just say, here it is. We could start them further away and have them come up with a route to... what's your route to contact, and as long as we give them an objective or something they have to struggle over. So
We could do the peach orchard.
yeah, we could. Let's see here. Here's the peach orchard right here. So we could say just take the peach orchard. Your orders are to take over the peach orchard, huh? And start them more or less equidistant and see what happens. Like we could start one here at Kern. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares away. So you start them both a mile away from the peach orchard. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. We could do that. We want to do that?
Sure.
Achilles, what do you think, man? I don't hear Achilles. He may have stepped away. Wolfton, any opinion?
Oh, I'm sorry. I had muted myself. You're starting one at Kern, and the other one was starting where again?
They're both start like a mile away. So this here should be 1 mile. The ruler. Let me scale the ruler. Oh, look, the ruler looks like it might be out of scale. Sure as heck is. Is the ruler scaled with the... Okay, hang on. Options, physics, play area 1. All right, that should reduce that fiddliness there. Okay. No, the ruler is scaled correctly to 350 yards, in which case 1,400. No, that's correct. The ruler is scaled correctly, but it's not a mile. So at the 1,400, so we basically start them about 1,400 yards apart. That's pretty damn close to a mile. So I would start around Cordoi Farm or whatever, right about there. So I could drop Damon here and the other one at Kern and have them both just march up the Emmetsburg Road and fight. Do we think it needs a little more complicated? Yeah. I mean, I think just keep it simple should accomplish the purpose.
Okay. Yeah,
You
if
know?
the goal is to test the combat system, then you got to get them into combat, right?
Yeah. I don't think we need to worry so much about the terrain and all
Maneuver.
that. So, yeah. Oh, he hasn't picked an avatar yet, but that's okay. All right, so we'll drop them both around there, and then let's see what happens. All right, I'll bring them up. Okay, guys, I've positioned both of you on the map. Obviously, you know where the other is located. The general orders for both of you are to secure the peach orchard. So you can, what I'll do is I'll create a couple channels for you. I'll create like blue 1 and red 1. So blue 1 will be... Oh, man, you know, I ought to have you guys change colors because that's just going to be confusing. Blue should be Union.
Right. That's fine.
Blue should be Union. Let's see here. That would be Damon. All right, and we'll save changes. And that should be a text channel. Change color.
Okay.
Well, we'll make him gray for the moment, and then we'll change your color to red. And then we'll make Damon blue. And then we'll have some logical consistency in the color as well. Well, why can't I make him blue?
I'm already blue.
Oh, well, there you go. Man, you're on top of it, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't get 2,000 hour badge tabletop for nothing.
Yeah. The only problem is now I can't unclick choose color. Oh, Lord. All right. There we go. Fixed. Okay. So blue 1 will be Damon, and then we'll make red 1 Paul or... Paul, what do you want me to call you? Is Paul okay, or do you want to go by something else?
Yeah, Paul's fine.
Okay, there we go. All right, you guys could just type your orders in there. So go ahead and come up with your order of march, screen cap it, drop it in there. I'll drop you in there. And then draw your route of march that you want to make. Actually, you don't even have to tell me the route of march. You just actually, you don't have to put anything in there. You just do it on the map. We're on the same map. I forgot that. Duh. So just arrange your units however you want. I'll draw a little line and just arrange behind that line. And then we're good. So set everything up behind that line and in a marching column or whatever. And then you can type your orders into your text channel and then we'll process them.
My text channel is called Blue Discussion, right?
Is it? It's Red One Paul.
Okay, then we get out of there.
Yeah, Red One Paul.
Where are the channels at?
Oh, you know what? I have to. I probably have to give you permission to view it. Add members of role.
No,
There
I mean,
you
I
go.
can see it. Oh, I closed all the blue and red channels and muted them for all the open Saturdays I don't participate in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it, but that's...
Well, the other thing too is you can just tell me. You know, we can tell each other if we're cool with hearing each other. We don't have to do
There we go.
secret orders. We can just have you just tell me what you want to do, and so what if somebody hears?
I'm fine with that if all parties are.
So I was trying to I was messing around with something.
We'll just give our orders right here in front of everyone. We're not going to worry about you know, any of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah. All right, so go ahead and arrange your units on the road in their columns, whatever order of march you want. And then
Or
draw.
you could march in line.
Yeah, I guess.
You'll just be a little slower. That's all.
Be a hell of a lot slower.
But you'll be ready. You'll be ready when you run into the enemy.
Yeah.
Oh, behind this line. There we go.
All right.
What is the letter at the top of the blocks?
That was
symbol?
just, they're from the Shiloh module. That just meant they were from, on the Union one is TNO. One was like Army of Tennessee. The other one was Army of the
Oh
Ohio.
yeah, Army of the Tennessee and Army of the Ohio.
Yeah. I pulled these little thin blocks because I kind of like them for this purpose. They just kind of work. They're long and they're thin. They're not particularly pretty. But I think if I have an official set made, it's probably going to be something like this. We'll see, because I'm going to play an in-person physical game on Saturday. I'm running it, and I have my old school traditional size blocks. I have they're Civil War, but I'll see what I think of that size. And I might have a new custom set made that's to new specifications. Damon has already offered to make new pieces. So we'll see. So
His secret basement workshop.
Yep, Damon's on the hook. All right. All right.
He's not allowed to escape.
Okay.
Let me try to put them in columns.
Yeah. Okay.
Why,
No worries.
how am I not doing that?
You just have to manipulate the pieces is all. That's
Yeah,
fine.
You just, you can select drag a whole group and then pick them all up and hit like one and it'll just line them all up.
Well, yeah, but if you do that now, it'll mix up the pieces. So you have to,
Well,
when
if
you do that,
select one in a row, then
yeah,
do it then.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
yeah. Okay, so is this the arrangement you want for your force? Is this correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And Damon, it looks, I'm sure you're arranged the way you want to be. I imagine you're at the head of column.
Sure.
All right. And of course, you didn't take the Damon officer block. Don't I have a block with your name on it, Damon?
You don't, or I would have.
Really? I don't have a Mosier or a Damon. I don't have. Were you in?
Yeah, I was in the Shiloh battle.
Yeah, what the heck? Well, these here probably came from,
The original Gettysburg.
yeah, the original Gettysburg. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, anyway, okay, that's enough of that. All right. Let's go ahead and begin. Go ahead and draw what route of march or whatever your little battle plan is. Just use red and blue. Draw it on the map. And if you have to tell me something, tell it to me. And then I'll calculate your movement, and we'll see who gets there first.
Is that pretty clear?
Yeah, that's crazy clear.
Wow. That's,
All right.
Yeah, I
wrong.
don't think it's clear enough. I think it needs to be more clear.
Okay. All right, and then
Where's the peach? Now I'm going to really show my. Where's the peach orchard? It's obviously it's going to be somewhere.
Right here.
It's right here.
This is the peach orchard. Gotcha.
Yeah, actually, let me make the line thicker. There we go.
Yeah. There's a lot of orchards on this map. There you go.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right.
Okay. All right. So, let's see here. All right. So, if you are moving in column along the road, that'd be 5, 10, 15 if everyone's staying together like that. And all of these, of course, can make that movement again in column on the road, flat terrain, so they're getting maximum movement. Wow. Wow.
Nicely done.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah. Thank you, Tabletop Simulator.
So my intent is the cavalry would move past the artillery.
Oh, well,
in that
okay.
line,
Then you
'cause they should be
gotta.
able to move farther, right?
Well, they
should be
can.
clearer.
Yeah, we can move them up here like that.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. All right, that's what we'll do.
Yeah, we got it.
All right, and in fact, the cavalry will definitely get there first. So go ahead and deploy your cavalry however you want them, and then let me know if you want them mounted or dismounted. And then Damon, your movement can absolutely happen. There won't be anything to prevent it. So go ahead and arrange however you want, if you want, or unless you want me to do it.
I mean, up to what point?
Up to the point that you drew. You drew right here.
End of the arrow.
Yeah, well, that's just the artillery. The rest of them are marching down the road until.
Okay. All right. So the artillery's to deploy here. He's going to deploy on that.
My men would know that there's like a rebel column coming the other way. So.
Yeah. All right. How many did I give him? I gave him 1, 2.5 squares. So let's give you the same. 1, 2, about there. Did you measure it? Okay. All right. Okay, there's that. Okay. All right. So obviously the cavalry's going to report back that they see a Union column coming around the J. Smith farm. They would probably see that artillery setting up in the distance. The officer would through his binoculars. Obviously, Damon, you would see that there appears to be Confederate cavalry in and around the peach orchard. So let's go ahead with your second turn order. And just scribble it on the thing, and then we'll just make it work. Okay.
Damon,
Artillery.
did you deploy the guns, or are they limbered or unlimbered?
Yeah, that's where they're to deploy.
Okay. All right. And is that both your batteries or just one battery, Paul?
I only have one battery. I would deploy
No,
the
you
left.
have two batteries. I see a rifled battery and a smoothbore battery. In K23 or K22, a battery is 2 blocks, but here
Got it.
it's just 1 block with 3 sections in it.
All right. Well,
I don't have
go
section
down that.
pieces here. So, which battery are you running?
All artillery will go to that high ground there, overlooking the peach orchard.
Okay, so you do have two
Here.
batteries, then one rifled, one smoothbore. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right, so that would be about 10 minutes of movement right there to unlimber and be in position. So that's 2 squares, basically, worth of column movement in road. So that's going to move you. Yeah, it's going to move you up to there, but you'd still be in column, I think, when you get there.
All right.
And that's fine. That's fine. Okay, you want to go in line right there instead?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cut the line there.
All right, and do you want your regular brigade in front?
I do.
Okay, and then what about this brigade?
The veteran brigade will be behind.
In column or in line?
It'll stay in column.
Perfect. Okay, there you are. All right, you're deployed there. Now, artillery will not fire over the heads of their men. So, are you sure you want to deploy the artillery there? Because in that position, they're masked. Or you may choose to redeploy the infantry off the road or something so that the artillery is not masked.
I'll move the infantry to the right.
Okay, perfect. Let's go ahead and do that. Okay. Yeah, I had to look that one up too. But yeah, they did not like firing over their heads.
Are you able to afford that?
I would.
Isn't a rifle 24?
Rifled gun?
Well, I think just in the interest of fairness, the rifle is a mistake and should not be there. I only had enough points for one smoothbore.
Okay, no problem.
Take that off.
I was like, just those 2 artillery pieces at 40 points. I'm like, how?
Yeah. No. That was just that was a mistake.
Okay.
But I do have 2 extra points, and so I have purchased a bugler. Anyway.
All right, David.
Man, Damon, you're at a serious disadvantage now.
Yeah.
Right.
He's gonna start playing soft jazz, and your men are like, "Forget it, man. You guys can go. You can
Never underestimate the power of a good bugler.
Yeah. Damon, go ahead and move your pieces into those positions. That's fine. Whatever your vision is there, you have the movement to do it. All right, that's what that means.
What is this here? Is this like phase lines or something?
Yeah, I think that he means that his each regiment's gonna,
Wow.
Yeah, those are like the divisions between the battalions, for lack of a better term or whatever. Yeah, like that. Yeah. Okay, no problem.
Damon's being all technical and stuff.
Yeah. No, that's okay. All right. So we got that there. Okay, and it looks like some of you've already started making second turn or third turn 3 moves. So let's erase what is no longer relevant.
Well, was the cavalry going to move turn 2 here, right? So the cavalry was going to swing out to the right for turn 2.
Okay. Oh, for turn 2. Okay.
Yeah,
and that's a 10-minute turn, we agreed. So that'll get you about to there, I'm thinking.
Okay.
Yeah, although they're probably at that point going to have some trouble
5.
maneuvering around to
I mean, clearly my artillery would be opening fire.
specifically that spot.
Okay, yeah, let's check the artillery range there. Where's my ruler? And we're looking for the magic number, I think is 14, or what is it? It's smoothbore. So smoothbore.
smoothbore.
All right, let's go to the cheat sheet. And all right, yep, there we go. Okay, so let's take a look here. So they did this at the end of turn 1, and they were within. Oh yeah. Yeah, so they are going to fire at about 900 yards or so. So 900 yards is going to be, I think it's roll 1 die and take the result. So smoothbores, yep, roll 1 die, apply the result. No DRM because they are smoothbores.
As the semi-official technical advisor. Those guns could reach before they even got to this spot, right? So as soon as they clear, those guns could fire on them.
Where you're clicking. Well, I owe him a shot here first.
Yeah, before they even move.
Yeah, so I have to resolve this first, and then we can worry about that. But I have to.
See. You're firing at him all the way out here, then.
Yeah, for turn 2. Turn 2, I owe him a shot. All right, so let's go ahead and roll this for turn 2. Let's roll 1 die to take the result. What? This is not fun when it doesn't do this. Come on, roll.
Yeah, it's got to do.
It's got to like go up in the air.
Yeah, if you're holding it and you're rolling, it's just going to limit you.
Okay, so they take 2 disruption. Let's see here. Where is my magical disruption marker? Objects. 12. There we go. 12 CV marker. There we go. All right. So
here's a question. Do you split that, or is it all on the first unit?
It's whatever they were firing on. So I'm going to say they're firing on this unit here.
Yeah, first one that came out.
Yep. So that's going to go on to him there. All right. Now, what is the combat value? I think the combat value of a regular cavalry unit is what? Oh, it's 8 here. It's going to be 8 because that's how I'm calculating it. You know, that needs to be a note because there's a flaw in my rules there. Combat value of cavalry relative to cost. And, you know, I might have this covered, but I might not. Because you just took a -2. I know that when I'm talking about dismounted cavalry, in the rules, they're supposed to be 4 CV. But I have to make sure that's not too weak. Okay, all right. All right, so I've got a note there to take a look at that. Let me look here. Cavalry. Okay, I don't have anything else on that. Okay.
No, they're not all.
Yeah, okay. All right. So, okay, so then he moves. All right. And
does he?
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he'll move. Yeah, he took 2 disruption. And then, of course, the smoothbores will fire again on him. So they will now fire at. Actually, it might be 2 dice. Well, no, he's outside of the 350. He's about because canister range was 400 yards thereabouts. So he's at about 400, but 350 per the rules. So he's going to go to disruption level 3. Okay.
It'll be roll 1 die with a +2 for the DRM.
Is that what it is? Because is that smoothbore?
Yeah.
Oh, +2. Oh my gosh. All right. What did I come up with? 6. So that goes to 7, 8. Okay. And it's still 1 disruption there. Okay. So that's correctly applied. Good catch there. Good catch. Yeah.
Do you want to reduce the size of that token so we can see the unit underneath it?
Yeah, I can. Actually, I did in the... It's supposed to be a fair bit smaller, like that. Yep, there we go. Let me make some copies because we're going to be grabbing a few more in a minute. Okay, so there we are. So that's the end of turn 2. Or turn... This is turn 3. And I think... Are we good with turn 3? Did everyone get a turn 3 move?
I mean, I've moved twice.
You moved twice.
Yeah.
Okay,
we
so
should
this
be at
was
the beginning of turn 3.
Oh, and
No,
here I am throwing
people...
dice for turn 3, and we're oh my goodness.
Erase the line. Erase the line, and then we're starting turn 3.
Okay, we're gonna leave the cavalry and the artillery as they are, though, since they did get their turn 3 movement.
Well, did you
Turn
move
3
the
is a
cavalry
lie.
up there?
No.
That was turn 2 movement for the cavalry.
This was their turn 2 movement.
Yeah, so it would probably be better
Oh.
to refer.
Okay.
You just fired on them twice.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Well, I'm glad you guys are here because, as usual, I'm wrong. Where's my little time thing? I don't have it on here. I need to update this module. I don't have my little time thing. Okay.
Well, yeah, I guess the question then was, did the artillery get to shoot at them at the end of turn 1 when the artillery and the
Yes.
cavalry deployed?
Yeah.
Maybe
This
the
is
real
turn-
turn 3 with defense made along the way.
Yeah.
Well, they run limbering in turn 1, right? After having moved there.
Yeah, turn 1 was their move up here, and then
Yeah.
unlimbering. So they
And then
probably.
turn 2,
I'm not sure they would have had time. And then turn 2, these guys cleared that orchard and they got fired on. And then he fired on them again when they got to their stopping point from the turn 2 move.
right.
Okay. So are you saying I was right the first time?
No,
Yeah.
you were wrong, but we've got it correct now.
Okay. All right.
Well, that combat value should be 2, right? Because the second firing shouldn't have happened.
Yeah, that's the question. Did the? I mean, they will fire on them for turn 3. You could just say it's already happened.
Right. Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we leave it there. Got it. All right.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, it also, it'll depend on what exactly they do for movement. So.
Okay. Let's go ahead and plot your turn 3. That's very good.
And
Good.
these are 15-minute turns. Yeah, how
I
many
think they're 10-minute turns.
are they? 10 or 15?
Well, technically we've been running 15, but you're right. We haven't run a consistent because it's 2 players. We can run 5-minute increments. It's when we are at the core and division level that we need to run in 15-minute increments. So actually, the time.
So how does it? How does that change your ruler usage?
It doesn't change the ruler usage. It's just how far units move. You know, units move the same at the same rate,
so one
but
turn you'd
move 3 times.
1,200 paces. Yeah,
Right.
1,200 paces. Got it.
Yeah. So
All right.
instead of 350 yards of marching for 1 turn, you'd move like 950 or 1050 or whatever. You'd move 3 squares instead of 1 in 15 minutes. So what you have here is, let's see here. That's 5 minutes
Firing.
of movement here. This is 5
he's
minutes.
firing.
And that's okay. So we can move in a 5-minute increment is fine.
Okay, then the veterans move up and then move in line, but they refuse to the left, if you will.
Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and make that so. Okay. So I'll go ahead and give them that. And then
The artillery shouldn't be an arrow, it's a firing. Artillery's going to try to fire. You can't.
Okay. Now the artillery does have an obstacle there. They have the trees. But let's see what Damon does. And it looks like
Right.
Damon wants to move. Okay, so he's going to get half
Somebody
movement. So it's going to move him there in 5 minutes. So if the clock now reads 6:30 from 6:25, this is where Damon is. And then all of these units are now moving cross country there. So they're going to move a half square because there's 2 complications to movement. One is they're in formation and the other one is they are cross country.
Well, wouldn't it be 3 because they're crossing these like fence lines?
If you want to, but I'm letting it go because this unit passed through the fence line first.
Okay.
More or less. I'm not gonna just for the sake. But yeah, you could absolutely very fairly say, wait, no, that fence line is gonna slow him down by a quarter. All units can move a minimum of 100 yards, no matter what, unless the terrain's impassable. So in 5 minutes, Okay.
Yeah, where is Rock Creek?
Right? Yeah, that's up at the top there. Rock Creek, forget it, man. That's where they found that submersible today.
Ooh.
We need
Oh,
to
did you
make.
hear about what happened to it?
Yeah, it broke up. Yeah, imploded.
okay.
Yeah, yeah, bummer, huh? But they went quick, man.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah.
Gotta go in a submarine. That's probably the best way.
Well, yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah, boy. Dark humor's like food. Not everybody gets it. All right, let's go ahead and plot our next turn. So these arrows that you drew would be technically for turn 4, simply because this firing here was a turn 3 shot. Okay, so go ahead and plot your turn 4.
I don't think so, because turn 1 I went to the peach orchard. Turn 2 I got there. We had accelerated and did the turn 3 firing, and so we agreed we're going to hold it to turn 3.
Okay, so for turn 3, then you want to... Are you trying to charge this artillery?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, why do we have a skirmish zug here? What is that? It's a skirmish zug. Why can I move it? Or is that an eraser?
That's an eraser.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, that's my eraser.
I thought it was one of these...
it's my bugler. It's
right
my
here.
bugler.
That's your bugler. Yeah, no problem. Okay, so you're charging with your cavalry on the guns, correct?
Correct, yeah.
All right. Obviously, these guys are going to get into the action.
Yeah.
And, well, you drew the arrows, so that's going to be how that is. All right, so the sharpshooters...
Here's the thing, though, right, is that the second die roll you did was based on this. If they're charging, they'd get canistered.
Yeah, they will get canistered here. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, we
nothing
good?
like the taste of grape shot.
We're off a turn, so the canister should have happened last turn if they could have reached it.
No, they couldn't. They weren't in canister range last turn.
Now, at the end of turn 2, so you fired one too many times with the gun.
That's right. We're out of sequence on the firing.
Yeah.
So there, set it back to the first die roll result.
There you go.
2.
There you go.
Now you get canister on it.
And now murder them.
All right, now we're good. Okay, so sharpshooters. Let me bust out my sharpshooters rules because I made some tweaks to them. And
Hey, you're really on the point with the sharpshooter rules.
let's see here. They fire
There we
at
go now.
700 yards. They have a
Now
plus.
the sharpshooters are behind the hill.
Well, yeah, but they would come up, I would imagine, to fire.
They're going to be in very loose order, and they're also going to be generally free to take shots when they see opportunities. So.
Yeah. Okay. So sharpshooters.
They're there to protect the guns. So
yeah.
Fair enough.
Engage those guys.
Oh.
And they're going to be firing into the flank of those horsemen as they go by, so that's going to be ugly.
Yeah. Okay. Hang on here. I just found something else to mark in my stuff here. Let's mark that in red, so it's probably going to go away. And let's go to sharpshooters. They have a +2 DRM per battalion block. If supporting an infantry, they're not. If they're defending, they defend with a CV of 6. They can't melee. If firing alone, they only inflict disruption, no losses. Roll the infantry. Don't forget the sharpshooters roll +2 at long range, though. So there's an inconsistency right there. Because what's the difference for short range? Short range, they should hit a little harder. So let's make that a +3 or +4.
Actually, do you have a first volley bonus?
No, I don't.
Well, I would say, because these are, I mean, not to get too technical into it, but these are Union sharpshooters, so they're going to have, like, Sharps rifles and stuff like that.
Yeah, so it's your argument.
Yeah, they have breech-loading guns. So,
all right. Well, we're gonna go ahead and give them a +4. Okay, so how it goes, though, is they throw disruption. They don't throw losses. But they do throw disruption, and disruption can kill a unit. So since the CV of these units are 8 each, let's see what it comes up with. So let's go ahead and roll. Okay. And, I didn't designate superior, inferior, but I think that would be the sharpshooters are superior. So in this case, because nobody can fire back, they don't take the negative loss. But we also have to apply the DRM, so that puts them at a 6. No effect, both fall back. So what we would say here is that this cavalry is discouraged from completing its charge by the sharpshooters. But at the same time, the smoothbore does get a shot at it. So even though they're not going to complete their charge, they're still going to get shot.
Does the battery get to choose which of those cavalry it fires on?
It does, although I would argue they're going to fire at the one that's closer. And since all this is happening simultaneously, they would probably fire at the one that's closer.
That's fair. Okay.
Yeah.
I imagine they'd fire just at the line. Like
Yeah.
The cavalry would be charging a line abreast, really. But
Okay, so it's 1 loss and 2 disrupt. So it's three disruptions. So the disruption would go from 2 to 5. But even then, it's a loss. So the block is eliminated. All right. So between the sharpshooters and the cannon, they're going to be eliminated there. The problem then becomes this other block, which will then connect. And that will ultimately at least wipe out the guns. We could probably give the sharpshooters a roll that will throw disruption, but that would also expend the sharpshooters as well. Because they charged, however, they will be spent. And in fact, do I have a marker for spent? I don't. Yeah, I do.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, so spent, we're going to put a minus CV of 4. So on the next turn, they're going to at least be a CV of 4. All of this will probably go away unless the sharpshooters get real lucky. The artillery will go away, but your cavalry's done. Your cavalry's definitely done. Yep, they're done. They're not necessarily routed or killed off, but they're no longer combat effective here.
Right.
Okay, infantry. Oh, wait, we had artillery that wants to fire here. I don't know if they can see much through those trees. And even if they could, the trajectory of Civil War artillery is relatively flat. So I'm not going to roll this because they could more or less fire into like the tops of the trees or something. Now, in K23, if they end up in the trees, trees become splinters. They become shrapnel when artillery fires into trees. So, and I believe that's accurate. If not, you guys can make the argument. But if he goes into those trees, then yeah, it'd be a DRM for that. I think the DRM might only be for howitzers, but it should probably be for all artillery.
Yeah.
Because the trees don't care what through the shell.
Yeah. Carter was saying in the research that he did for his Civil War system that he's read that being in trees makes being fired on by shells much worse. So.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I do need to check trees on howitzers. And all already. Okay, so I make a little note there. But yeah, howitzers definitely did that. But I'm like, why? Like, does the tree care? Does the tree check to see, well, was that rifled or howitzer? Oh, it was a rifle? Okay, I'm not going to splinter.
Well, yeah, it probably has more to do with whether you're firing like round shot or shells,
right, it's the type of shot. And we would assume...
A little bit too technical.
Yeah, we assume that the gunners will call for whatever.
Choose the most effective shot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we're not going to... Because I even thought about that when I conceptualize the system. Do I let the player, if he's near the guns, call the type of shot? And I'm like, that's ridiculous. of course, they're going to fire the optimum shot. Okay, go ahead and plot your turn.
Although you could let the player override the choice of the battery commander if he wanted to. I mean, the battery commander is going to choose the most effective shot, but if the player wants to choose a less effective shot, he could call for it.
I suppose, yeah, but
Yeah. I mean,
do
it
I
would be
want
a
to
dumb
write
thing to do, but
do
why
I
not?
do I want to write a rule for that in a book that's
Nah.
already 100 pages
That's
long?
That's
No, I don't
probably
think you need a
something-
rule for it. It's just like, hey, if the battery if the commander happens to be standing there and he says, I want them to fire the less effective shot, then you say, okay, sure.
Yeah.
And then the battery commander turns the guns towards the commander.
I do have in here what's called the thanks I hate it rule, rule 3.4. It says that person exists, the one who can point out everything wrong with every decision in the rules, and chances are they are absolutely correct. The point of this exercise is to have fun and to explore tactics and other scenarios without excessive concern over minutia. This is not to say that such things are unimportant. They certainly matter a lot. That's why we have entire books and both primary and secondary sources devoted to these topics. However, they just aren't the focus of this experience. If you wish to change any rule for any reason, please do so. Blah, 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 blah,
There you
blah.
go.
Yeah.
That's the catch-all phrase.
Yeah. And then I say, just make it so and keep playing. The focus is to have fun and explore. If you cannot do that, then please play a different game. We only get so many trips around the sun. So,
Marshall, are you reading that?
yeah.
Yes, he is.
Yeah. That is in there,
Is it-
man.
I think
That's
the
a
key
target
is just
reference
being
point in the
consistent.
trees, by the way. That's
Okay.
the target reference point in the trees,
Okay,
not a
got it.
gravestone. There you go.
The key is probably just being consistent, and most things are a wash. I mean,
Yeah.
Technology on one side or the other. Most things end up being a wash. So
Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and so your regular, the 12th Tennessee here is going to take up this position, right?
Yeah.
They're going to occupy this position here. All right, the 24th is just going to kind of dress their line up a little here. And then you have a reference point there, but it doesn't look like Damon is going to oblige you by moving into it per se.
Okay.
So there we have that. Okay, Damon will move up to about here. That's fair. And then over here, we just got to decide what happens to the cavalry. So the sharpshooters get a shot.
Real fast. Like, I just drew the line to say where the direction of movement.
Uh-huh.
But
They're going to get about half a square. They're going to get a couple 100 yards.
all right.
So,
I would say that since ACW Cav is not particularly good on the charge, that these guys, they're probably just going to leave.
well, okay, so we've got here 8, and then we're going to rotate that 1, 2, 3, 4, so that becomes a 12. So in this case, the cavalry is routed. So
Okay.
the sharpshooters survive. That doesn't mean they didn't get some, cut some down or do some damage. And I'll probably put a little disruption on the sharpshooters just to reflect that they didn't get off scot-free. But they did survive.
Also, probably for the purposes of evaluating the scenario afterwards, the Unions hold the guns. The Confederates didn't make off with them.
Right, sure. Yeah, the guns were, the cavalry
gunners
did
ran
not-
away.
the gunners ran away, but yeah, you're right. That's fair. And that would be my ruling on that too. But for the sake of this, when a piece is going to be removed from the scenario, I just tend to take it off the board to simplify things. So,
Yeah.
So did you just like assign the -2 to the sharpshooters?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but their combat value is like ridiculous. Well, it's a 6.
Well,
And
I'd say they're hiding in rocks. This is rocky terrain, so I'd say good luck to cavalry being able to do anything to them. But
I would say 1 from like just them taking like carbine fire as the cavalry were moving across their front.
Oh my gosh. All right, just argue with the umpire. That's what we're going to call this. This is the...
I'm also an umpire here.
K argue with the umpire 23.
My ruling on this is that one sharpshooter took a piece of buckshot in his left shoulder, and that's it. Okay,
That's it.
that was all that happened.
That is
He
all that
fires,
happened.
but I counter ruled that he fires left-handed, so he's out.
That's right. So he's been disrupted now because his left shoulder really hurts.
Yeah.
He's heading back to the seminary for a cup of coffee.
Okay. And on the YouTube, I got some comments. While you guys go ahead and plan your next turn, your next move, go ahead and plot it out. Wait. We're in range here.
Do we have to do shooting?
Yeah.
Somebody does.
Yeah, but gosh, you're so far in those trees, though.
Yeah, but it's an orchard. Remember, it's not a forest; it's an orchard, which means it has lanes.
Yeah, but the thing is the volume of fire going to make that much difference either direction. At what is essentially, let me see, they're at about 300, 250 yards or so. How far out are they there?
How far away are they?
We have
They're
About 225 yards.
225 yards.
Yeah,
It would be pretty dissolute shooting.
Yeah, that's not like long range for rifled muskets, but that's like longer range. It's not.
Yeah. So I think with all things combined, like if we want to slap at each other at long range and throw some disruption on each other on a battalion or two, maybe, but I don't know if the effect is going to be that significant.
I don't
If
think
we
you'd
had
waste your
smoke pieces-
powder.
Yeah, if we had smoke pieces, I would just throw those down and then go with it. But it doesn't look like we have any, so I think it's fine.
Yeah. All right, so go ahead and plot your next move, and in the meantime, I'm going to take a look here.
Okay, so the guns have no visibility, is what you're saying.
Right. Not on this position here. Let's see here, and then here, see they're masked. See right here, they're masked. So yeah.
Okay.
So you probably want to move the guns up or move,
Yeah, probably to like at least this rise.
Like right in there.
That's going to take you about 10 minutes at least.
My intent for this line was to fire, so I want to catch them as they come up the rise. So whatever that.
Okay, so you want to
whatever part of the trees the men can go into, so they can get the field of fire forward. Is
all right. So and that's good that you articulate that. So we'll just push them forward. That's definitely within their 100-yard minimum, and plus he's coming forward to oblige you. Okay, on the YouTube, Wolfton, you're there, and you're in here in this channel, aren't you?
Yep.
You see, I don't have the Discord open. Let me.
It's a different Wolfton.
No, it's him. Well,
no, it's
I've got like 5 screens going on, and I can't see them all. And then Robert is
his
here.
evil twin.
Robert says, I think I might have read some references to battalions in the American Civil War as a group of companies of the same regiment all operating as a single unit. So you might have some rare circumstances where a regiment is split into 2 or more units or battalions. But practically it would be super rare to split a regiment since they are already so small. So
Kind of makes sense where the battalions might have just been administrative.
right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing here is you can't split up your regiment. You're not allowed to split up your regiment in the game. You know, you can't take this block and send it over here and another one over here. No, they have to stay together. They really are one unit. And the reason there's multiple blocks is not only does it allow me to take off losses, which is an administrative thing, but it also allows them to be flexible like the Tennessee is here. The 12th Tennessee is. See how they're kind of conformed to the terrain.
Which is how they actually fought, right?
Right, exactly. Real Cheese Consumer here on the YouTube asks, is the K23 system specifically for the Civil War? Could it be used for other time periods? The answer, it is specifically for the American Civil War. However, the lessons that I've learned here will be applied to probably applied backwards to K22 if I decide to revise those rules. And then if I ever do anything else, we'll see. You know, certainly the knowledge that I glean informs what I do. Or even the Franco-Prussian War or Austro-Prussian War, but they're very different. And yeah, they're very different. Crimean War, he mentions. Yeah, I would probably do different systems for that, but I have a lot of learning to do before I even think about doing something like that. I'll probably never do those systems. I'll probably die before I produce them because that would require a lot of study.
You're trying to
Or
adapt.
you just make it up as you go.
Yeah, I could.
Trying
Just-
Trying to adapt ACW stuff. It's really important to note that the units aren't as well drilled in the American Civil War as they are in European armies. So.
Yeah. Oh, look what I did. I messed that up. All right, let's fix that. Okay, so here we
What
go.
are you trying to say? What are you trying to say about the American Army? What are you trying to say?
Well, I'm saying, all the European advisors came over, and then they realized, oh, there's nothing to learn here. They don't know what they're doing.
Okay, limber is half, and then they're gonna move about there. About there. All right. All right.
They say that, but they weren't paying attention at the Siege of Petersburg, or else they may not have
Yeah,
sent all
I
the
was just
guys
thinking
in.
the
Yeah,
I was just
right,
thinking
they
the
should've-
exact same thing, Damon.
They should have had a look
learned
around
about
there.
trenches.
Yeah,
Learned about trenches.
well, yeah. It turns out that, conscript armies very much became a thing, and then suddenly, nobody knew what they were doing.
Right. They'd all gone home by the time Petersburg, right? So they missed that part.
Yeah, pretty
Okay.
much.
Oops.
Please,
So-
killing Americans, this would never happen.
So, combat. We have our first real serious combat here. So the first thing in the 6 steps, K22 and K23 have what are called the 6 steps. Just I'm saying this for the edification of the viewers as well. And the first thing is you group who's involved in the combat. Now this unit is kind of firing off to the left here. They're oblique. And then this unit kind of has some concealment here from the structures and then the trees. So I'm going to argue that these guys are probably not going to really do a whole lot of shooting at each other. You know, that doesn't mean they're not exchanging some kind of shots, but probably not enough to be significant. So in this particular fight, I'm going to group these 3 battalions against these 3 battalions because that's the nomenclature we're using at present. And I'm going to compare combat value now. So combat value here is regular, so that's 4, 8, 12. This is regular, so that's 4, 8, 12. So they are both have identical combat value. The next thing is to designate one as superior and inferior, and it does not matter because they both have the same value. So we're just going to say that the Confederates are superior. The distinction
Due to terrain.
maybe, but whatever, you know, we're just going to call them
Doesn't
that.
matter, right?
Yeah, it does not matter. It has no mechanical difference here when we're doing this. And then we have to
Although you
determine.
could make the argument that that's the effect of the bugler.
Right, it could be. It could be. Now we decide if there are any die roll modifiers that we should be applying. I don't know that the terrain is that substantial. Let's see.
Well,
here.
they have the advantage of elevation, and they have the advantage of they're standing still while the other forces move.
Was moving. All right,
Yeah, they are
so
in-
we'll give the Confederates a +1 here. We'll give them a +1. All right. So let's go ahead and roll that with a +1 for the Confederates who are also ruled superior. Okay, let's do it. All righty. Oh, that is a cocked die, my friends. That is literally, look at that. It is on its
Hanging
thing.
on the edge.
Yeah. Okay, so let's just re-roll. Okay, and then we're going to give a +1 to the Secesh. Okay, so the inferior will retreat. So they're going to take 1 disruption. So that goes on all the units that exchanged fire. Okay, because this unit did not exchange fire, it doesn't take the disruption. But the retreat rule, and let me look at what I said for retreat, because I literally messed with that yesterday or today when I was working on these. So let's take a quick look at. I don't remember. And let's see here. Possible, that's melee outcome. That's routes. We're not dealing with the route here. Attack, range, cover, combat. Okay, let me find. Retreat. Always take one disruption.
Is that on top of the one they've already received?
No.
Oh.
It is the one, right?
Yeah, it is the one. Yeah, the way I'm doing it here is what's on the dice is what it gets. Okay. But what I need to take a look at is what rule did I say? What does retreat mean? In K22, it means 1 square, 400 paces. In this case, it'd be 350 yards, and it might mean the same thing, but I just want to make sure. A retreat, okay, it says here, rule 12.3, a unit that retreats moves back 700 yards and suffers 1 disruption per all units. So that would put 1 disruption on him. Yeah.
That reminds... Oops, sorry.
Okay, so they're going to go back. They're going to go clear back here. They're going to go pretty far. All right, so they retreated back here, and they all took their disruption, including this one because of the retreat. So what could be argued here, and this is because I applied it to all units. I don't know if I should apply it to all units. It does make sense to apply it to all units, but in that case, shouldn't they take a second disruption? Because they were disrupted because of the combat. These were disrupted because of the retreat. But then they retreated as well, so shouldn't they take a second disruption? Thoughts on that, guys?
Personally, I think they should.
Yeah, that's what I think too. Because if we're going to do that, then I need to do that there. Okay.
Okay. I guess the question I have, though, is that the die itself says retreat and take 1 disruption. So if they're supposed to take 2 disruption, then shouldn't your die say 2 disruption?
Yeah.
Unless you're saying the combat, which the die is giving you the result of, creates 1 disruption. The retreat creates a second disruption.
That's correct. That's what I intend, but I have to make that clear.
Yeah, so, but you'd never have the retreat without the combat, right? So it's easier for the Empire to just see the 2. Because would you ever retreat without a combat?
No. So that's what I'm saying. It's like I would think that if
I'm agreeing with you. Yeah.
If the like if I would say change the die then to be 2 then if that's right, because the retreat is caused by the combat that caused a disruption, but the retreat causes a disruption, then just put 2 disruption on the die.
Yeah.
For units that are retreating, I think commanders should be, at the very least, advised to set up rally points for their units, because these are basically militia. And so if they just run, they don't know where to rally up anymore. It's going to take longer for them to basically get back together as a unit. So units that retreat and don't have a rally point should probably get an extra disruption penalty.
Well, the rules as written, it comes out like this, but it looks like, but then I'm shortchanging on these guys as written. So that's why there's a flaw. What is intended is this, but as written is he's supposed to take 1 in the disruption. What I may need to do is edit that, moves back 700 yards, and remove reference to disruption. So I would delete that. And then, okay, and then I would take, and takes any effects on the dice. Any disruption on the die. Okay, I still need to work on that. I need to make that very clear because people are going to say, well, what's caused the disruption, the combat or the retreat? So that's the problem. What causes the so retreat should cause an effect, but the combat also causes an effect. And so I'm gonna have to really look hard at that and explain that a little better. So
I guess
okay.
the other question I would have, I guess, is when you say retreat, like what does that look like in your mind? Just because like when I look at combat results in any of the games we run, I kind of like compare it to what I know of like actual battles. Like 700 yards is really extreme for falling back from a single volley or two. Just because I just think of like say Little Round Top. That's the thing I kind of always go back to. It's like 700. That's basically like them retreating to the south side of Big Round Top. And I know the Confederates like attacked multiple times, so like that seems like kind of an extreme.
I think there's a difference in nomenclature between falling back and retreating.
That's what I'm saying.
And,
it's like if it's like retreat, as in like they're blasted and they're running. Or
it's you can almost think of it. I think the way he intends it is that fallback would be something where they still have some form of some semblance of cohesion, whereas retreat is almost a temporary route. It's like they ran until they felt safe, and then they all kind of just stopped.
Yeah. So do you have a fallback result, or is it nothing or retreat?
I do. Okay, so here's 12.2, 12.3, and 12.4. Fallback. A unit that falls back moves back 350 yards and holds position. It does not suffer disruption or losses. So the intent of that, and that result has been made rare. But the intent of that result is, the commander's up there, he's taking some fire, and he's like, man, this is a little too hot for comfort. Let's go ahead and pull back. We're going to pull back as far as we need to be safe, but no further. But we are going to pull back. We're going to look for better ground, better terrain, whatever. So what I can do is change the rule to say that in a fallback, the umpire will retreat the unit, but in an orderly way, no disruption, no losses. But it's based on terrain. I can express the intent of the rule, and it does not have to always be 350 yards. It might only be 100 yards, but it could also be 700 yards, whatever. 700 I agree is extreme though, but I think 350.
It would be essentially falling back to cover, where they they're out of immediate danger, and then retreat is retreat. In my mind, I think the way I see it, what you intended, and I could be wrong, is that it's a temporary loss of cohesion. So that unit is essentially not under the orders of its officers for a temporary amount of time.
Correct.
The men decided this is a bad spot. Let's get the hell out of here, instead of the officer saying, "Hey, this is a bad spot. Let's pull back."
Okay.
Yeah,
it's a difference between those two.
I agree with that definition of retreat. So I was just wanting to see if there was an actual fallback result.
So
in addition to, because like I see on your die you have both fall back, but like in this situation, like that would seem weird to me if the Confederates fell back from this position. If I also felt like we would mutually fall back when they're in a defensive position, I would say that would be weird for the Confederates to fall back. If you'd rolled a 6, I'd be like, well, why are they falling back also? That's weird. So I was wondering if there was a situation where the attacker falls back and the defender does not, as opposed.
That seems like one of those moments where the umpire makes a judgment where he says, "Look, they probably would not fall back from this because they're in a better position. The attacker would fall back, but the defender wouldn't because they're in a stronger position."
Right. So kind of like with the sharpshooter situation.
Would that be what you have done? Another idea would they fall back through the veteran and just fall back to the back of the hill, feel safe, and then rejoin the line once they kind of get the rack molded together.
Yeah.
Would be the other way to
So,
look at it, right?
yeah, so the intent of result 6 here, no effect, both fall back, is both commanders at the same time just kind of lose their nerve a little, get shaken,
Right.
and mutually they both kind of draw back. But if we don't think that's a reasonable result, I could modify this to say either fall back and make a note that it's the umpire's discretion to choose one or the other. What do you guys think?
Think of
maybe
the
inferior falls
position.
back.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, like if they were both standing in an open field, then both falling back in the circumstance you just described would make sense. They're both essentially breaking off the engagement, so they're kind of stepping back out of firing range. But if one's in a strong defensive position, like on a hill or in the forest or whatever, they're a lot less likely to fall back at the same time. The attacker might fall back because he's out in the open and he caught fire and he says, "Hey, this is a bad spot," but the defender isn't going to give up a solid position unless somebody makes him. You know?
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And I'm only chatting so much because this is a test game. If this were like a normal game, I would say
No, that's the reason why we're doing this
that's why we're here.
is to get this discussion and feedback and get this back and forth going. I would tell you that rightfully, I think it should be like this. I think this is the accurate result here, back here, 2 and 1. But I do. I made notes though, so I have to figure how I'm going to do that. But this here is really the historic, correct, whatever realistic result I would feel. But what I did do is I changed retreat from 700 to 350 to 700. And I'm going to go ahead and make content. Again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make these fallback and retreat things discretionary for the umpire because it is highly situational. And in K22, I give you a figure because I figure, people don't know what they're doing and maybe they aren't going to have the brain power to think through that. And they're just going to just tell me how far. But now, based on experience of the past year and a half, it's like, no, they can probably handle it and we'll just make it discretionary. That makes sense.
Yeah. In this particular instance, if I were the umpire and I was making this decision, I would not have fallen them back the full 700. I would have fallen them back to here because this becomes a focal point. When they get into these woods, they're going to be out of the line of fire, and these buildings here, they're going to kind of just like people do. They're going to congregate at a focus point like that.
Yeah,
and that's where the officer can finally get them back under control.
And this is why Kriegsspiel is umpired. As opposed to a game where the rules are really rigid, the duty of the umpire is to apply a reasonable and realistic result to every outcome, even if it means changing things or even tweaking a rule. The idea is that the decision made by the umpire is rational, believable, can be justified by the umpire. If that's the case, the umpire can do whatever he wants. I could turn this 6 into a 1 if I want to, and I'm within my rights as an umpire to do so. Now, I wouldn't. That's a little extreme. But theoretically, if something like that happened, and well, yeah, as an umpire, that's why it's an umpired game. So, all right, I think the point is made. Okay, so let's go ahead and do our, let me erase the lines. Do our, 5th turn now? We've been moving in 5-minute increments, which, by the way, is working. I think we've probably done a couple of those. And again, 5-minute increments works when you're at this really small scale with just a couple, 2 or 4 players, which is how the system is written. But again, if you're playing at a higher level where you have core versus core, divisions slamming into divisions, you're going to need, and I'm not talking about one division on one division, I'm talking multiple divisions. You're going to need to move in 15-minute increments. Now, nothing else changes. You still just roll the one die and it works. But really, the system is tuned for this level of engagement. The idea is 2 people or 3 people can sit down on a Saturday afternoon and in a couple hours scratch the Kriegsspiel itch and be happy. All right. That being said, Achilles, if I see you here in a month, we'll just have to bust this out and just play Kriegsspiel and tell our families they have to wait.
I think that'd be great. That'd be awesome. We'll just take over the ballroom of the hotel.
There you go. Okay, go ahead and plot your move.
Change of mission. The artillery is going to go over to the right.
Okay. Now why are you doing that? And my issue with that is it's just going to take longer for the artillery to get out there.
Because I'm the left is going. I'm going to have problems with my firing. Basically, arc here.
He's not going to have
buildings and trees.
Yeah, he's not going to have a clear field of fire.
He's not going to move through the trees.
Yeah.
So my intent is to have the infantry hold against this next assault. And then by the time the artillery gets over there, the marksmen or the sharpshooters
are going to be shooting at it.
Fair enough. But it's not useful. In other words, if I move it up on the left hand side, it's not going to. It's going to be ruled.
Yeah.
I put it on the wrong side, basically. So.
Yeah. All right. I moved Damon over to rally his mid. He's going to be rallying his unit there. That unit will recover in a couple of turns. The disruption, if you stand still for a turn, disruption recovers. And then really it's supposed to be like a 15-minute per 1 point, but we can kind of recover at whatever rate you want. So, and 30 minutes.
Recover nothing at all.
Yeah. So,
are you just out of curiosity? This is going to be counted as a complication for the movement of these guns?
No, they're going to move to the road and do this. So
I gotcha.
So this is a complication because they're off roads. That's 25%. And then this here, they'll get full movement. So they're going to get 75% of a square at the end of the day, which is about to.
You're ignoring his arrow, basically.
Right. Well, because that's what the battery commander would do. The battery commander's not going to drive through the orchard. He's going to use the road.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that's what he intends. So
because they're lazy, so SOBs. So that's exactly what he would do.
Right.
Typical artillery. Yeah.
All right. These guys are going to get some movement there, up to there. These guys are going to move up to here for sure, and they're going to come online. And this is just fine. This formation is fine. That's a decent formation. And then we're going to go ahead and recover these guys by a step because we're being generous instead of making them wait 15. If this were a bigger game, I would probably say we're going to only recover one every 15 minutes. But whatever. I think that's fine here. Especially, I think your first one or two levels of disruption should recover pretty quick.
Intention would be that left-hand unit can be engaged in the fight. So if they reposition.
All right. Yeah.
To be able
Fair
to
enough.
engage. Yeah.
Fair enough. Damon, go ahead.
It would seem harsh to take half an hour to recover from a 5-minute exchange of fire, but
right.
I get because it's like your rules are written for 15 minutes, right?
Technically, but in a 2-player game, it's 5. So there's discretion.
It's kind of all just, I guess, slides.
Yeah.
Also, try to remember they just wind sprinted 350 yards. So
yeah. I don't
catch their breath.
Well,
that alone takes a few minutes.
The problem I've always had with Kriegsspiel resolutions, frankly, and I've said this before, is that I have a problem when like a unit moves its full movement in a 15-minute span, engages in combat, and then retreats a full movement, all in a single turn. You know what I mean? It's like it doesn't seem like
physically possible.
Yeah, it just seems physically like chronologically impossible for that to have occurred. Because like you could argue there wouldn't even be time for them to engage in combat if it took their entire move to get to weapons range. But I see it all the time where it's like they get into weapons range, they fight, and then the guy retreats like a half a mile or something like that. And it's like, well, you can't even move that far in a normal turn.
Right.
So
running away is always faster than marching in.
It is. It is.
So how would you correct for that as an umpire with your discretion? Would you
Yeah, you would just
allow them to engage in next turn? What would you think?
Yeah, I would kind of like disorder the pieces, like, turn them so it's like clear that they've broken away, and then the following turn I would then move them back.
Yeah. And I think that's pretty reasonable too. And in a 2-player game where time isn't so much of an issue, absolutely do it that way. Absolutely.
I mean, honestly, because you could even as an umpire, I guess, argue that you move the guys into the woods, and on this turn they would be arriving at the woods anyways, right? So, you could
and we've
too.
Yeah, we've used that logic to justify it. Remember, Kriegsspiel is the land of fudge.
Oh, I know.
So we're always fudging things, and I also believe that is in.
It's a land of fudge, and everyone has their own recipe.
Right. Well, there's that too.
You prefer the Civil War fudge or the
some of us prefer nuts in our fudge, and some of us.
Right.
Yeah.
Time to ban Damon.
Yeah. So rule 3.1 is Kriegsspiel is the land of fudge.
My cats, you are better than dogs. That's right.
Oh man, Damon, you're about to lose terribly here. But yeah, rule 3.1 is Kriegsspiel is the land of fudge rule. Just so you know.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anyway, okay. I've done the math here. So obviously, because the Confederates have higher CV, they're superior. They have 444, that's 16, versus 444, which is 12. Even though these are part of the same brigade, they're not online, so they're not shooting. Therefore, they're not included in the calculation. So Confederates are ruled superior. These are inferior. Then because they are superior and they have a higher combat value that is more than 2 of the inferior, they get an automatic +2 to the die roll. In K23, that means they get to roll the advantage die. Here, I'm not going to have an advantage die. I'm just going to give an automatic +2 DRM. Plus, because they outnumber them, they get another +1. So because they outnumber them by 1 battalion, each battalion that they outnumber, it's a +1 to the DRM. So the total is +3 with Confederate superiors. So here we go. We're going to roll the die and give the Confederates +3.
I'm the one who started.
Yeah, it was a good roll.
This could be really bad.
Okay, and then 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, it is going to be rough. Inferior retreats, 1 loss, 1 disruption. So these guys are going to take, first of all, a loss. So a block comes off. They've lost about 200 effectives. Then they're going to take a disruption. And then they retreat. So as they retreat, they'll take another disruption. Okay? And I just need to be very clear on that in the rules. So they're going to retreat like that. They're going to come back there. This unit now is here. Now, we can argue they retreated through them. And so here's where umpire discretion comes in. Do we retreat them also? Because they are supposed to stay with them. And then if they do retreat, they're going to take a disruption. If I leave them behind, I am breaking my rule that the units have to stay together. So I think that's the reasonable result that we've encountered there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So essentially they fall back.
Yeah, these units would fall back, but they got to stay together.
Makes sense, right?
Yeah, they've got to stay
They could
together.
have a permanent disruption, I don't see.
I would reckon...
They
for
took a
our
loss,
purposes-
which is the permanent consequence. Go ahead, Sean.
Oh, sorry.
I would reckon for our purposes, they probably... they fall back from where they were, which was like here, and they're now like along this fence line, like prepared for a counterattack.
Well, the problem is these guys, what was the die result? Was retreat. The result is retreat.
Mm-hmm.
So they're all going to retreat together. The brigade commander has ordered, hey, retreat. Or I'm sorry, the regimental commander, the colonel has said retreat. And so these guys are going to follow. The question is whether or not I apply disruption to them. Because they're retreating, technically, yes.
Would they retreat in good order though?
That's
they're
the
not
counter
combat.
argument. That's the counter argument. So as an umpire,
Do you want to roll for it? Do you want to roll for it?
and that's why I have numbers on the dice, because that does allow me to roll for things like this. So we could just say odd or even, they take disruption or not, which is another way to resolve these things. So that's why there are numbers on the dice.
What would the level of competency factor into that? Like I could see an entire Green Brigade militia,
Yeah.
you know, getting ordered, but I mean deploying a brigade in a double line is a standard formation. Like that's like a typical
Right.
formation. So for like the entire brigade to just shatter in a single volley, even the back line.
Well, it's not a single volley. It's 5 minutes worth of exchange, theoretically.
Yeah.
So if
And that back line just had the front line run through them.
yeah,
That's the heart of it. And I mean, you know, some units would absorb that and stand their ground, and some units will just run right along with everybody else. So
Okay.
that's why I think that 50-50 thing kind of makes sense, because you don't know which way those guys would react. You know,
yeah.
it's kind of a random thing.
So what I've done here, I rolled an even number. So in my head, I was like, odd they take disruption, even they do not. So they got even. So no further disruption for them. So there's that. Okay. At this point in the scenario, I would probably call it. But if we want to go ahead and go for another turn or two, maybe see what happens with the sharpshooters versus the artillery, we can totally do so. And I'll tell you what's going to happen with the sharpshooters and the artillery. It's not good for the artillery.
Yeah.
You know. But do we want to play one more turn, or?
Well,
I mean, no one to even attack with. So.
I've seen enough for tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Okay.
feel like
I think Paul would
I don't
just
know.
charge forward and run over the disrupted Union troops that are all gathered there.
Well, actually, at this
Right.
point, he holds the objective. He holds the peach orchard. So artillery comes out here and it won't really have time to fire. It does have time to move here and then unlimber, which is half the movement. So that's 5 minutes he's unlimbered here. But at the same time, these guys, I would argue, would be able to start firing on the artillery. And then my rules are basically, well, they only throw disruption if artillery is in touch, and I may actually have said sharpshooters. But anytime infantry or cavalry touches artillery, it just goes away. It goes away. You know, we can argue that the guns are left on the field in possession of whoever, like we did with the Union. But generally speaking, artillery just goes away. Now, artillery does get to fire its canister shot usually or whatever, if there's time for it to do so. So that could be a thing. But with sharpshooters who are in open order and using cover, they're not going to charge in. In fact, sharpshooters can't charge. But what they will do is they will take so many shots at this range, and they should be making these hits, that they're going to pick off the artillerymen, so that the artillery is going to abandon the guns and run away. It would no longer be effective. I don't even think I would roll it. I would not roll it. I would just declare it. So I would do that. But then
I would roll to see if they retreat with the guns, like orderly, or if they just panic and flee.
Totally fair. Totally fair. Totally fair. So let's see here. Odd or even. Odd being bad, even being good. Okay, so they would withdraw with the guns. You know.
However, one of the stray shots hits Paul right in the forehead.
Ow, right in the noggin.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately,
Great way to
Paul
go.
is not Richard Steele. If Paul had been Richard Steele, and I don't think Paul knows the legend of Richard Steele, but Richard
No, I
Steele
don't.
is here with us. Damon is Richard Steele. And I actually don't have a Richard Steele command block. I should drop one in. I should find
That's
one.
where I would have been crouching behind the bugler, and the bugler got hit.
Yeah.
Right in the bugle.
Yeah. Well, Damon,
Right in the bugle.
Damon, do you want to tell the story of Richard Steele real quick?
Sure, if I can remember it correctly.
It was Grand
Yes,
Gettysburg, I think.
it was no, it was Brandy Station. It was the
Oh.
first. It was the first time we tested the brigade rules in a large game
Uh-huh.
with like more than 3 people at
Oh
once.
my.
And I was corps
I had a
commander,
perfect shot on David.
and we were getting close to the end of the day. Because we played for 6-7 hours or something at that point, and I was at my wife's grandparents, and she kept coming in the room, getting annoyed with me. So I was like, all right, I think I'm gonna have to leave before the game's over. So then Marshall's like, all right, well, then we'll just have your commander get hit by a cannonball or something, so we can justify
Right.
him leaving.
Give you a justified exit. You sure?
Yeah, so he's like, I'm gonna roll a die, and if I roll a 1, it hits you in the dick. So he rolls a 1, hits me in the dick, and then it's like, all right, we're gonna roll again to see if it kills you or bounce off. He rolled a 6, it bounced off. So he rolled a 6, and it's like, that's right, it hit me in the dick and bounced off. So like, okay, and so I guess he's Commander General Richard Steele.
Oh,
And the
Lord.
best part is every game where I've played and I've used the name Richard Steele, something like that has happened. Where
There you
someone
go.
else-
There you go.
I did a modern battle where I was Captain Richard Steele the Fifth.
The 5th.
I was trying to defend a town that was being overrun by Soviets, and I think I had like a platoon, and it had an entire it was either like a whole company or battalion coming in. So I called artillery on myself,
Right.
and it killed every single person in the town except for me. And he rolled a d20 twice to see if I would survive, and I survived it.
Well, there you go. There you go.
There you
The
go.
legend holds true.
The legend holds true.
All right. So I don't really have a critique for the players. This isn't one of those things where I need to critique the players because it wasn't a competitive game. It was a test game, so it actually goes the other way. I would invite critique from the players for the Empire and the system. So, Damon, I'll start with you, man. What do you think? Any feedback or anything you want to say? This is your
I would say
chance.
It plays fast. I mean, I guess
When they get close to you.
the rules don't change much from your 15 minutes to 5 minutes, which I can understand. I guess it seems
automatically brought me to
a little bit
page down.
implausible that effectively a whole division would get routed in 10 minutes of fighting just like 3 regiments. But if you were to say that this was like half an hour, like 2 15-minute turns, which is what those results would normally be, I could see that. But it seems like an awfully fast, destruction of a force in only a 10-minute time. But that's just me. But Dan Sickles would have loved to have had the peach orchard become that impregnable for him.
Yeah. So if I distill this into actionable feedback, are you saying that I need to just go ahead and call this a 15-minute turn?
Possibly, or maybe you need to have more like intermediate results on the die. Like maybe more fallback results rather than just like outright retreat defeated.
I did before because let me see here. I could go to no, I don't have it, huh? Well, I already overwrote it. But yeah, the original D12 had a ton of fallback results. And that was one of the critiques that I got on Saturday, was that when units fall back, it's usually just not a good thing. It's very hard for units to fall back under fire, especially, and maintain cohesion. So I should just have more retreat results. So now I'm getting the opposite feedback from what I got on Saturday.
I would say, just my 2 cents on this. well, it starts with a question, but is this meant to be a fixed scale system or a flexible scale?
What do I have to
Um,
do that I'm not a spinner?
Well,
Okay.
that's the
What's
thing
point
is
of
if you're
it?
gonna play these bigger
I
games,
wanna-
they want
Yeah, what's the
you
point
know
of
it needs to be 15-minute turns because 5-minute turns are too tedious for a larger game, which is very typical for what we do in the IKS. But the way that the system was originally written was, or the way it's tuned, is for two people like me and Achilles, or me and Damon, or whoever, to sit down and play a game over a couple hours, which is exactly what we've done here, just like this. And in that case, you know, a small scale 5-minute turn makes some sense because the commander would be able to, you know, at a lower level, the commander's making more decisions per unit of time than at a higher level. At a higher level, where you're a division commander, you're not making decisions every 5 minutes. At least I don't think you are. You're making maybe a decision every 15 minutes, if even that. A corps commander might make a decision every hour. Now, Achilles can correct that because he has the experience. I could be wrong about that. But I think the lower you get to the rank of private, the more decisions you're making. You shouldn't say sergeant. Privates don't make any decisions. But the closer you, well, they're not supposed to, I would say. The closer you get to, you know, sergeant or NCO, the more decisions you're making in per unit of time. Achilles, what can you? Am I wrong as usual?
No, actually, miraculously, you're correct. the the speed, the cycle of decision
The
is
OODA loop.
faster. It's accelerated at that lower level because the actions that are happening much faster.
Yeah.
The further away you get from the action, the longer that loop becomes.
Right.
Yeah, it's just I guess the issue I have though is that I feel like the combat results are tuned for 15-minute turns, and to say it's 10-minute
Okay, so
turns seems
I'm just
extreme.
gonna
So like this right
drop
here,
this gun because you
this
don't
was a
understand
situation, right, where
Bruh, I
we
get
first
this
exchanged
Spanish
fire.
shotgun also.
So like if you're
Right.
doing a 15-minute turn, then
Actually,
basically
yeah.
it went from
I'm
this
going for it. I'm taking
to
Spanish.
that in a single turn, where like
Right.
2 full brigades routed
Okay, so Davis.
in 10 minutes.
yeah, and that's kind of what I was thinking is that um, either you're gonna have to do something with the
Me and Davis
combat
are
dice
sitting there contemplating life for around an
vis-a-vis
hour.
the time scale, which probably means that they're less uh,
Potent.
snappy than is intended, and it's less simple and it's more complex in resolution. Or you could do like sub maneuver turns if you're doing like 5-minute turns. Do like maneuvers and then roll for combat every 15
I
minutes.
don't
So,
know what you are watching, but
Okay, so when I get
whatever
to
you are,
3
it's
minutes,
not okay.
or side result 4, here's where it starts to get, here's where it diverges. And so I could create a 5-minute die and a 15-minute die.
Yeah.
That's what I think you do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can see that, and then the 5-minute die, you would probably have some reduce the number of retreat
Right, in favor of
and
fallback.
in favor of
Well, you-
fallback and also continue engagement.
Right.
Yeah.
Inconclusive.
Okay,
Yeah,
What you can do
so
if
it's
it's
like
inconclusive is you can change the composition of the lines, which what they would actually do. So
mhm.
if we had it inconclusive, but I could have moved one of those veteran units up to give me more firepower, that would have been historically what they would do, because the officer would run out, run to the end of the line, grab the end of the line, and move that line so you get better fire. So that then you're making decisions as a lower level commander that kind of simulates what was happening back then.
Right.
Right.
Plus, it's like
So-
the whole point of doing a double line is to fill gaps, you know. So
Right.
it's like if you see one part is getting hammered, they can pull back, and the other fills their spot or something like that.
right?
Yeah.
So you'd have that like that. That would almost be like an inter part of that 5-minute segment. It's like a continue engagement. So both sides have fired, but the effect hasn't had any uh, dilatory effect on either side yet. They're just going to keep hammering away at each other for the moment, you know.
Yeah.
And they're both, and officers on both sides are filling in the gaps in their units if they have reserves, you know.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I would
'cause, like,
say
on a
one
5-minute
other.
scale, you're much more likely with this like level of firepower to achieve like effects on the company level rather than like the regiment level. You wouldn't really repel like a regimental attack in 5 minutes unless it goes horrifically badly.
Okay. Okay.
Now
So
there still needs to be at least, you know, like a small but a chance of catastrophic failure. I mean, that always has to exist because,
Yeah.
you know, a green unit, for example, in its first engagement might take that first volley and just completely disintegrate. You know, they just all turn around and run. You know, I mean,
The attack can absolutely break in like 10 minutes if things go very, very badly, but
yeah, it becomes a cascading
that's
effect.
the exception, not the rule.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. But it needs to be there. There needs to be the possibility of catastrophic failure. You know, that does have to be there.
yeah, well, that is 1 and 12 on the die. So yeah, and that's why I went from a D10 to a D12, so I could have more middle results, but I still wanted to have the extreme results. But in the D10 and K22, I just felt that the extreme results still tended to come up a little more than they should, especially once you get into modifiers. So
Yes. Yeah.
so that's why I went to a D12. I didn't want to do a D20. I felt that was just really pushing it, but a D12 seemed to be the happy medium there.
One
only
thing I
other-
like.
Go ahead.
No, you can go for it because you're playing. So
Okay.
you were in the game. I'm sorry.
The other, I guess the other thing is, are there any mutually damaging results? Because
Let's see here.
Both
6.
sides take loss, or
Yeah.
both sides take disruption.
because I think because I picture in my mind the Iron Brigade versus the Stonewall Brigade at Bronner's Farm.
Yeah.
Where they both stood there hammering each other.
Yeah.
And they were
Yeah.
both getting chopped to shit, you know. But
And
they were
if
both
I remember
playing
correctly,
hand-to-hand.
correct me if I'm wrong, Damon. Wasn't that engagement the Iron Brigade's first engagement?
Exactly.
Yeah. And
It's where
so
he got
here
the
was a
nickname Iron Brigade because they stood toe to toe with the Stonewall Brigade and fought him to a standstill.
yeah.
on their
So
first fight.
here was a green unit that did the, you know, what would be the out of the box result. I mean, you know, you would expect them to have a higher probability of breaking and running, but instead they just stood there and went toe to toe with them, you know. Yeah, exactly.
So
The
yeah,
key
so
there is
both
that they
take
both get
disruption.
damage.
Yeah,
Exactly.
So
Yeah, and then-
I'll do that as well.
Yes.
For the
Yeah, and then
sorry, Otto.
kind of along those lines, and I don't know if this is a direction you want to go with the system, but it would be interesting to essentially have like militia or green units that have like an unknown combat quality rather than they're just bad. Because sometimes you get a unit where like all of the officers are good and the men are motivated and they fight really well.
Hey, Marshall, that sounds familiar. I think I wrote something like that to you just yesterday.
Yeah, I think you did. I think
That
you
would
did.
That would be hilarious, actually, for someone to then buy more militia units, hoping to get lucky that one of them is good. Win the
That's
lottery.
right. 50. Half of them run, and half of them stand like veterans. You know.
Yeah, there you go.
That's kind of militia, right? That's how militia works out.
Okay, Paul, as the other
Yeah.
player, what feedback do you have, please?
I think it's been covered well in terms of opening up the middle range of inconclusive results. If you really look at what happened, I positioned the artillery incorrectly, and so it never fired once. I bought cavalry because I didn't know we'd know where each other was right away, but I ended up having to just use those to take the guns out. But in the end, I got lucky with 2 die rolls. So if those die rolls would have been reversed, I'd have been running back down the hill the other side. So when the whole thing comes down to, for playability and enjoyment, if I could just move my forces to a good position and just get lucky on die rolls, that's not good gameplay. So I like the idea of if I'd have been forced to use my veterans because it was inconclusive and I had to adjust my line, that kind of gets you into the spirit of it. So but it's all been covered already, but good stuff.
Okay, so more middling results in the middle of the dice.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, all right, that's the actionable feedback. Okay, Achilles.
Yes, sir. One thing I want to add is kind of tacking on. I think it's what Damon was saying earlier. The results on negative results to both sides, because here's a situation where, like, Damon puts his guys up and he keeps a reserve, and he's assaulting. He's hoping to do some damage to the defender that he can then bring in his reserves to try to push them out. But if all the results only apply to one side, then you're rarely going to get that opportunity. And it seems like, if you're going to throw guys at a line, you're going to do some damage to them, even if they beat you.
Yeah, and I did write rules for what do you call it, column of attack or whatever, where you can go in by column of companies or column of regiments or whatever, brigade, whatever. I have it in there. I actually had to ask everybody, some experts, what is that?
Isn't that? But isn't that?
But yeah, that's the thing.
Napoleonic.
Well, no. I mean, in the Civil War, troops did attack in waves.
Never
Yeah,
really
they did,
seen
but it's usually, I mean, you were talking about how before that melee isn't really melee; it's just close quarters.
Yeah.
And in the American Civil War, it seems to me that the tendency was for the two lines to basically hammer at each other until one of them felt like the other one was near to running or whatever, and then they would come forward. But it was really winning through firepower, more than anything else. And so there's that mutual exchange of loss until one side's morale just breaks or gives,
Right, and I do have the close range fire rule, which is, I think, like under 100 yards or something, both sides immediately just start taking disruption. At a minimum, they each take disruption. So I do have a close range rule.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, just
Attacking in column was largely discredited by the Civil War. It was used by the French, but it was even the French by the end of Waterloo, everyone was recognizing it wasn't that effective. But Emery Upton did some things with lines of regiments that effectively concentrated firepower, but it wasn't an attack column. It was regiments in line that had the effect of an attack column. So in the case of the game here tonight, those 2 regiments or demi brigades that were behind would have been the follow-up, so they should somehow have been able to gone through and carry forward the attack, and that would be the effect. But the Civil War, the attacking column, don't make rules on that because it was largely discredited.
So if I could illustrate it, these pieces aren't exactly. This wouldn't be quite the scale, but this would be like something sort of like a mixed order Napoleon.
Yeah, order mixed. Yeah.
Where these guys, they would hold the flank, and then basically the idea would be these guys, they would march and their mass would carry them through and break the center.
But did that happen in the Civil War? Was that even a thing?
No.
Not really. And when
So yeah, I don't want to get off on that bunny trail.
Well, because the example that was posted, it was either on the Facebook or the Discord, I forget, where it was like that after action report. That was the Battle of South Mountain. And so, like, the only examples I can think of off the top of my head were, they attacked in a column of brigades like that was South Mountain and at Chickamauga when Longstreet launched his attack. It was because they were geographically kind of like concentrated, and that's the reason they did it. You would never attack across a field that way.
Yeah.
It always lined up.
Well, I did write rules for it because that
Right.
guy is out there.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
I was just saying.
Yeah, if the terrain forces you into that kind of maneuver, that kind of formation.
That too.
But if you're in open ground, yeah, you wouldn't do that because they would just get murdered. They would absolutely get murdered.
Yeah, and I think I actually
yeah.
wrote that in my rule book. I actually mentioned that especially that
In
first
big red
line's
letters,
getting-
he wrote,
yeah,
"Get murdered."
yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much.
'Cause
And then
that's the
Marshall.
last thing I would say about just feedback on the system is kind of like what Achilles was saying, where like I was attacking with reserves, and I effectively got punished for it. Like I would have done better had I done the IKS throw everybody in a single line.
Yeah,
and
the
just
gamey
tap
thing.
around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
had I done that, I feel like the dice mathematics would have worked more in my favor than attacking with reserves, which is what I did.
Yeah, and you're right, and that's kind of, I think that's a hole that needs to be fixed. And one other thing I would say is that going back to the beginning part, you need to define very clearly or clarify the difference between fallback and retreat. That needs to be in there.
Yeah, I've got that.
Because they're very
Yeah.
different things. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and it's always been clarified. It's just that today it got a little muddled, and I'm like, well, what do we do with this? Because 700 yards is quite a lot. Okay,
And one
Sean,
last-
what's your feedback?
Yeah, I would say probably another way to simulate like just combat taking like the both side nature of fire exchanges would be to like add one disruption to each unit per 2 rounds that it's in like serious combat.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna do something along that line. Yeah, Otto, you're here. How you doing, Otto?
Hey, I was watching the stream for a bit, so I just wanted to clarify some things because I think you misunderstood. Some
Okay,
of the
good.
feedback
Go ahead.
Saturday, about fallback and routing. I think why I first came in here is because I think you said that at first you basically had a lot of fallbacks in the system, but after the Saturday game, you got the impression that the fallbacks were bad, so you just changed them all to routing.
Well, most
which
of
made
them, all but like one. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I think you missed a key part of the feedback, which wasn't that the fallback itself was unrealistic, but you shouldn't fix it by just changing them all to routing. I mentioned you should have, and you also suggested use this yourself. You should have more, like other people have said, kind of inconclusive results, or not inconclusive, but results that basically make it so that the firefight stays in place. I think the fallback in linear warfare is kind of unrealistic. I don't think it's really possible to get a formation that's fighting to fall back in order. So I think the routing is better to basically, I think units routing or retreating in bad disorder is a realistic way to kind of break combat and basically end a firefight. But I think there should always be a very high chance that the firefight stays on for long, and that's why you need basically, like I think Achilles suggested, a lot of results that basically make it so that both of the sides are basically disrupted, and it can potentially become one of those typical drag down firefights. And also, if you have results that make both of the sides disrupted from combat, that's also quite realistic, since at least in Napoleon combat, a battalion or any formation is its most vulnerable after it has come out of a firefight, even if the enemy has fallen back, because the men are all exhausted and they're low on ammunition and everything. So you have potential for counterattacks and stuff, which is realistic if you have a lot of those results that basically are bad for everyone and just make the combat slower. So basically, don't have fallbacks as you have. So yeah, keep the fallback results out, but also don't just change all of them to routes like you have now. Make sure you have a lot of those results which are basically portraying firefights staying on for longer. And the other thing that Damon very well put out as well is the thing with reserves, that attacking in depth needs to be more encouraged. You guys talked about like assault columns or something. That was also something that was mentioned in the Saturday game feedback. I basically myself tried in the Saturday game. I had basically an attack in depth going. I just had like double lines attacking an enemy position in concentration force, and it basically didn't go well because I didn't go the IKS full extended line mode, meme mode. But also some people interpret that as doing an attack in depth means somehow doing like a Napoleonic column, attack column formation, which wasn't. I don't think that was my intent at all, and I'm not sure people always mean when they say attack in depth, they mean attack columns, because I'm sure that in the American Civil War there were a lot of attacks in depth, which is basically a line going in first, backed up by another line, giving the morale and filling the gaps. And because historically, if you look at, for example, John's research, there many of the American Civil War battles actually had more men per mile than in Napoleonic battles, suggesting that the battles in the American Civil War were even more in depth, so to say, in terms of formation. So there were even more reserves than in Napoleonic battles. So I think you definitely should somehow include better that players are encouraged to attack in depth. And attacking in depth doesn't mean some attack column, but basically sending a line supported by reserve line at the enemy. And yeah, I just wanted to clarify those two things.
All right. No, that's good. Thank you, Otto. That's helpful. Okay. Anything else? If not, my box is open to written commentary, so you can also just send me written input or feedback. I'll be making some tweaks then in the next 24 hours, but this is the last playtest I was able to do before Saturday. It was a very valuable playtest because now I have some really good feedback that I'll take into the Saturday game. I wish I had a chance to give it probably one more playtest with this feedback, but it's probably not realistic. But I think it'll go well this Saturday, and then we'll continue to refine and test the system. So I'm hoping to get it published by the end of the month, which is in a week, but maybe I have to take a little more time, but we'll see. Anything else?
Remember, folks, all of your comments and complaints, all cards and letters addressed to Marshall, Neil.
Yeah, send it all here. All right. Well, thanks, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for participating, especially Damon and Paul. Thank you for being my guinea pigs today. Thank you, Achilles, for being here. Thank you, Sean, for being here. And thank you, Otto. And then Wolfden was here. And Robert, I think you gave some good commentary. And who else had something to say? It was something with cheese. Somebody with cheese. The real cheese consumer. Whoever that is, thank you for your question there on the YouTube. All right, guys, that's all I have for now. I'll make these changes, and we'll see how this goes. I'm pretty happy with the system. I'm really liking it. But it does need more refinement to be more reasonable, and that's what we're going to do. So, thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.